Hey, what is up guys? We are going to be taking a look at XYZ Encore. It is a new card coming out in Judgment of the Light. That's a quick play that's pretty good. It's more of an anti-XYZ card, but let me go ahead and explain what the card does, then we'll go over the positives and negatives of this card. So, as they say, it's got a lot of text, but they'll basically summarize it for you. So it's a quick play spell card that targets one enemy XYZ monster with at least one material. It detaches all remaining materials and returns the XYZ monster to the extra deck. Summon as many of the detached materials that were monsters as possible to your opponent's side of the field in defense position, but with their levels reduced by 1, and it cannot be responded to in any way. So it's got that Super Poly spell speed floor aspect. You couldn't even change Super Poly to this because it's that good. But let's go ahead and talk about the positives of this. First off, it absolutely destroys Ohi, and that's one thing I really like about this card because, you know, as Konami was mentioning, synchros are coming back, but, you know, synchros can't really exist when Ophion's just going to say, no, you can't synchro for anything. So this is a good card to, you know, get over the monsters. But it's got that one slight downside where it special summons the, you know, the materials onto your opponent's side of the field, but, you know, most of the time they're going to be weaker than whatever the monster is, unless you're talking about, like, the E-Dragons, and in that case, yeah, the E-Dragons, you know, Redox has 3,000 defense, so it's still a task to get over. But, in the bright side, you get to get rid of Ophion and you get to go for your plays. Another great thing with this card is if your opponent already, like, got the monster on the field, something like, you know, Bottomless Trap Hole is a great card when your opponent, like, you know, XYZs and goes for, like, Draco Sack Big Eye, but when it's already on the field, it's like, oh, I need to get over it now. Even though Draco Sack will still have the tokens. I don't know, I still think it's, you know, it's an okay card, but, you know, if they flooded their field with, you know, too many cards, then, you know, maybe it'll be good, because it says this is a mandatory effect, but we'll have to see how it's ruled. Maybe if you have to detach, if it's detaching 2 material, I'm wondering what will happen if you already have, let's say you have 5 monsters on the field, will it just summon one of them? Because it says summon as many, so I don't know, we'll have to wait to see how it's ruled, because I know with Dandelion, if Dandelion is sent to the graveyard and you don't have 2 spaces, like you only have 1 space, you don't even get one of the tokens, so we'll have to see how it's actually ruled, because the card isn't actually out yet, but it does have some potential. But the main thing that I don't like about this is if you're playing against windups. Windups is like an XYZ crazy deck, and there's always the new loop with windups, right? Like that deck will always probably be relevant, you know, for a very long time because, you know, even though they hit it a little bit every time, someone figures out a new loop for it. But here's the thing: since it summons the monsters, the material essentially onto your opponent's side of the field, they could just make something else. Because, you know, windups, they play 3s, 4s, and 5s. Unless you hit like a level 3 monster, or I'm sorry, a rank 3 monster, they're probably not going to be playing Gachi Gachi or any like rank 2 XYZs. But majority of the time, once they make something, if you're going to send it back, like say it's their turn and you're using this card defensively on their turn, they can just make something else, and that's kind of bad in one aspect. But I mean, against a certain deck, yeah, I understand it's pretty awesome. What is really good is it would technically get rid of Logia, and Logia can't negate it, which is awesome. Although, again, the problem is it still gives your opponent the monsters. That's one problem I have with this card, is it doesn't punish your opponent for going for an XYZ play and leave them with nothing. Something like Compulse, like if they go for Draco Sack Big Eye and you Compulse, unless they still have dragons that they can still banish and they can still, like, you know, get their searches out and all that good stuff, you leave them with a blank field, and like something like Black Horn of Heaven or Compulse. Leaving your opponent with a blank field is obviously much better than leaving your opponent with 2 monsters in defense position. At least 2 monsters. There's no XYZ that just XYZ summons by using like 1 card, unless you're talking about like overlaying over like something like C39 was it Utopia Ray, something like that. I mean, generally you're gonna give them at least 2 monsters, and that's one grudge I have about this card. It's like, well, I don't want them to have defense, because one other problem I have with this card is that it has to have at least 1 material. I mean, I look at it this way: if your opponent has gotten an XYZ monster and they've used all its effects, so they kept on detaching with it, they got its effect, whether it be once or twice, they already are at advantage. Why not allow XYZ Encore to still be able to, you know, just send it back to the extra deck? Why does it have to have at least 1 material? That's one problem I have. But the main problem I have is this: summoning the monsters is like, come on, I want to get rid of the thing. I don't want them to still have stuff to, you know, defend themselves when I want to, you know, go for game or do whatever, you know, I want to do, rather than having them the potential for them to make something else. Like for example, E-Dragons, they have room in the extra deck. I mean, pretty much they got the multiple Draco Sacks, they got the multiple Big Eyes, they got the Crimson Blader, maybe number 74. But the thing is, they have some room. They can throw in a Bouncer. Like if people start side decking this card, I'd be safe to say, you know, why not throw in 1 Photon Strike Bouncer? That deck definitely has room in the extra deck to fit in like 1 Photon Strike Bouncer, which would be you know, it's still a good card to make, because normally they don't really have access to it, but with Encore being there, they'll be like, oh, you negate my Draco Sack? Okay, I go for Bouncer. Or what is that card? That new card? Was it Gauntlet Launcher? I think like Pops one card or something like that. But the way I look at it is, it's just too mediocre in my opinion. One thing I do like about it is that you can't. It's got that spell speed 4, and they do mention like number 74 Master of Blade. It gets rid of him because he can't activate his effect, and they can't chain anything to it, which is it's pretty good in that aspect. But again, I think it falls short of something like Compulse, where because as you guys know, Konami, like they said synchros are coming back, right? So if we think about this and we say, you know, this card would be a great card, but I don't think I would main deck this card, because if synchros are back, Compulse gets rid of synchros, XYZs, anything that, you know, stuns like Thunder King or something like that. It gets rid of everything, and it's like always live, where this card, you know, technically can be dead, because if they don't have material on it, you can't activate the card. I think if you're really worried about XYZs, Black Horn of Heaven's a pretty good card. I loved this card back when plants were a popular deck. This card was awesome, because it essentially was kind of like, so you could think of more of a Solemn Judgment, because it only negates inherent special summons. It won't negate something like Abyss Megalo, because that's just the nature of this card. But I think this card just, it's a good card. It's like a Solemn Judgment on a monster, and you don't have to pay life. So I like that. But, you know, if synchros are back, I think Black Horn of Heaven is a fantastic card. I mean, Compulse, by all means, is like, he is the card that we go for. I think it's Gaga Gigo that's on the artwork of the card. This card is where it's at. It's realistically what it comes down to. They mentioned Compulse in here. Where is it? Yeah, they mentioned Compulse, more and more popular. But I really still think that Compulse is more viable. But I'd love to know what you guys think about this card. Do you think this card is viable in the main deck, or is it more of a side deck card? Personally, for me, I think it's a side deck card at best, and personally for me, I would just rather main deck Black Horn of Heaven if I'm already maxed out on Compulses and I really wanted to main deck something like XYZ Encore. That's my 2 thoughts for it. Let me know what your thoughts are in the comment section below. But thanks for watching. Have a great day. Asian Ice out.